Hi, I'm Elizabeth Sherman, and today I'm doing an interview with MaryAnn Wayne Pierce. She grew up in Cayuga, New York, and she currently lives at Bluefield Manor. She talks a lot on her childhood growing up, her longtime friendship with Kyle Sanders, who also joins in the interview with her, speaking on their memories shared together. She talks on her love of quilting, and just a whole bunch of other fun and interesting things. And you'll hear Joan Parsnick joining in with some questions as well. So sit back, relax, and enjoy my interview with MaryAnn Wayne Pierce.
I'm MaryAnn Pierce. I just had my 89th birthday, and I don't know where the years have gone, and I don't feel 89. I grew up along Cayuga Lake and in the Cayuga County area. Went to Union Springs Central School, graduated there. Let me see. I married the boy next door, except he was in the next seat on the bus, school bus. He didn't live next door, but he might as well have. I got 4 kids. I have 12 grandchildren and 14 great-grandchildren. Let's see, what else you want to know? I was married 64 years before my husband passed away. I'm a farm girl. I cannot get it out of my blood. When I'm driving along in the car, I love the smell of new mown hay. What else would you like to know about me?
Maiden name.
What was that?
Your maiden name.
Oh, Wayne. My maiden name was Wayne. I grew up with 5 brothers. They're all gone now, but their picture is on my hutch, and I talk to them every morning. I do too. I probably sound like a little bit wacky, but I always have to say something to them.
Yes.
Let's see. I love to quilt. I've made many quilts. I have some that have ribbons. I've done a lot for giveaway quilts. Let's see, what else? I like parties. I like dancing. I live at Bluefield Manor, old folks residence. It's not a nursing home. It's not assisted living. It's for senior living. Let's see, what else can I tell you? Oh, my dad died when I was 11, and my mother remarried. There's 2 more children, a daughter and a son of that marriage, and the son is gone also. The daughter lives outside of Ithaca. She's still living, and she has 4 children also. I have tons of nieces and nephews, and they all live in the area. The name Wayne is pretty prominent. When my 2 Wayne nieces started college at the community college here, there were 2 Wayne boys the same age, and they looked at them and they said, we know everybody by the name of Wayne. Where did they come from? They came from Seneca Falls, and their dad was a Seneca Falls, Seneca County Sheriff. And I have a picture in here when his grandsons were born. He deputized them at birth. I have that picture in here. And the Wayne girls and the Wayne boys did become pretty well acquainted. And at first they didn't like them, but then they decided they were okay. Oh, I could tell you all kinds of stories, but I think you want to know about the things around Cayuga where I grew up. Do you have a lot of information on the village of Cayuga?
We do. We just had a wonderful display about it.
Did you?
We can always learn more, and maybe you can share some of the things that were important to you.
Well, you probably, I mean, it wasn't a very big village, but at the time when I was a little girl, it was a very active little town. So was Union Springs. It had 3 grocery stores, a post office, a couple little restaurants. The Beacon Milling Company was huge, and you probably have gotten all that information. They were the biggest employer in the area. And their president's name was Stan Tyler, and he had a daughter, Joyce. And Joyce and I were very good friends. Our mothers were best friends. And Joyce now is out in Arizona. I was going to be named Joyce Mary, but she was born the 10th of May, and she's Joyce. So I was born the 17th, and I was named after my great-grandmother, MaryAnn. And now, what else? There was, the Mansfields was a pretty big name. They lived right next door to my grandmother on Lake Street. What else do I want to tell you about? They had electricity. They had running water and toilets. We lived on a farm a mile outside of Cayuga, or less. There was no electricity, no running water, no inside plumbing until I was probably 6. And then they put electric between the village of Cayuga and Union Springs. And we got electric lights, and we got flush toilets, and we got bathtubs. And we didn't have to take a bath in the rinse tub that my mother rinsed clothes in anymore.
The house that you lived in at that time, there's a sign on
Across the road?
across the road that says Wayne's Point.
Yes.
And so the house across from that sign was your home, your
Yes.
family home?
Yes. And that house, I was born when that house existed, but a couple, 3 years before I was born, the house there burned. And the one that's there now, my dad built.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It's a nice house, and a Mennonite family that owns it now.
Mhm.
And it was converted into 2 homes at one time. And I think now it's just back to 1 family. But it was a 2-family house at one time. Big house. Very nice, except
Yes,
no
it
running
is.
water or toilets. No electricity.
So you had an outhouse there?
We had an outhouse.
When you had your party?
Yeah, I don't remember that one.
We did, and my mother, it had a window in it. My mother made a little curtain, and she wallpapered it.
Oh, your mother was special.
She wallpapered that foolish thing, how I hated that place. And they would move it from one site to another when it filled up.
Right.
They would move it. So one year, my dad dug this hole, 6, 8, 10 feet deep, whatever, and it snowed. And so the toilet didn't get moved. So we made like igloos. We packed snow in blocks, and we put it all around the hole so we could get down in that hole in the ground. We put straw all over it. We had candles on the side of a fire trap. There we played.
Is that your brother's idea?
We never started a fire in the toilet pit though. But then when we moved it, my mother wallpapered it. And one side of the toilet had a big knot in it. And she wallpapered over it so that nobody could peep in that knot. And somebody, certainly not me, drilled a hole in the wallpaper so they could still peek in the toilet when somebody was in there. Did you know these stories?
No, I'm telling you a story they didn't know here.
You know, Carol, introduce yourself,
Yes.
please.
Oh, well, I think they've seen me before. And I was just saying I probably would tell the same stories over again. In fact, I thought I probably had said that story about the fire trucks coming
The
and
fire trucks, yeah.
I might have told that before.
I don't think you did, actually.
I didn't tell about that one. Well, there are other stories. We were just talking of, there's a gentleman that lives here now. I won't mention his name. But way back when I was in kindergarten, I was shy, believe it or not, I was shy. And I brought a piece of cake to the teacher for
Mrs.
my
Houghton.
birthday. Mrs. Houghton, her name was Mrs. Houghton. I brought her a piece of cake. But I just kind of crept up with it. I just didn't want her to know. I didn't want her to see me put it on the desk. And I came back to my desk and she sees the cake and she said, "Oh, now who did that?" And before I could say anything, although I still didn't want to because I was shy, this young man who's living here now, he said, "I did." And so she never knew. And I told MaryAnn, it's funny the things you remember, but the things that traumatized you, I guess. And I thought, can I face this man if I ever see him here at Bluefield Manor? Am I going to say to him, "You
lives
took
right up
my
the
birthday
hall."
cake in kindergarten"?
He's the
You
nicest
claimed
guy.
my gift.
Yes. And I still am traumatized about that.
Well, tell us a little bit how you two know each other.
How long you been friends?
From when we started school.
Yeah.
Now, actually, I started school a year ahead of Carol.
Don't tell us that story.
Yes, I did. I started a year ahead, and I was in one of the first kindergarten, if not the first kindergarten class in that school. And the next year, Mrs. Houghton had, like, I don't know, 7, 8 kids in kindergarten, and she had the first grade group too. So the next year, I'm in first grade, and Carol starts kindergarten. But she's very smart.
Yeah, right. No.
And Mrs. Houghton is asking questions, and this little kindergarten kid back there is answering them before the first graders can. So Mrs. Houghton said, "You should come and sit with the first graders." So she joined first
Joined your
grade.
class.
So that's how we went all through school together.
She
actually-
skipped school. She skipped a grade.
She skipped kindergarten. Yes, she did.
Had a day in
I think she knew
kindergarten.
how to tell time too. In kindergarten, you knew how to tell time.
I don't remember that.
Yes, I do.
She remembers a lot of things I don't quite
As
remember.
Mrs. Houghton asked, at one time, when the clock, the hands were on 12 and 3, it was getting time to leave. And she asked, she said, "Do any of you children know what time the clock says?" Carol says, 3 o'clock. So she knew how to tell time. We were just learning how to tell time. So
Now,
that's,
that's ruining my previous remarks when I said I was real shy, isn't it? Because apparently I was very vocal a little bit later on.
yes, yeah, I would say yes, definitely. Definitely vocal.
Shy and vocal.
Shy and vocal, that covers it.
So we were just, we were just friends, and we had second grade. We took tap dancing lessons, and we had a little show, and they made these little paper hats out of crepe paper and cardboard, and we're on a step outside the south end of the school building. You're in the picture.
I don't remember this at all.
So I got the picture, and the teachers made little crepe paper skirts that we wore to match our bow thing. And there are my friends, Carol and Mary Lou and Shirley, cute, curly hair. And then here's MaryAnn, tall, skinny, buck teeth, ugly, straight hair. I went to the barber shop with my brothers. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go to the beauty shop. I wanted to stay with my brothers. So I got those Buster Brown haircuts. And then I get about in 7th grade, and 8th maybe, ninth. Mrs. Tanner told me I needed to start acting like a lady. She did. And so I thought I should curl my hair. So I got an electric curling iron, and I started curling my hair every morning before I went to school. I had burn marks all over my neck.
The price of beauty.
I tried so hard to be a girl.
Oh,
I was such a tomboy.
that was hard on you.
I do.
It's a price.
I was just looking at pictures. I don't know. Maybe it was in here even. Oh God, I don't know where I'd find it. Of that.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about this book? What is this book all about that you have on your lap?
My book.
Yes.
Oh, my book. It's got about 6 generations in it, and it has my beginning, when I was born, pictures of my kids, where I went to school. There's a lot of information about just me and my mother, how many kids she had, and her second marriage to my stepdad. There's tons of stuff in here. And her parents, where her family came from. I guess her family was pretty much from Scotland. It seems my family was very militant and political, and very religious. They always attended churches. Part of one of the reasons that they came at a later date from England was from Europe was religious freedom. And I never knew what this religious freedom was all about until I went on a cruise. And we went up and down Europe. We went through Germany and all the different countries down to Holland. And when I saw all the vineyards, beautiful vineyards, owned by the Catholic Church, people were not allowed to own land. The Catholic Church owned most of the land, and you worked for the Catholic Church and contributed to them. And that's why people left. They wanted to be able to worship in any church they wanted to. Anyway.
Oh, stop.
Where did they come from?
It's like being in church and having go to.
I know, I never even thought of it.
Some of them came and landed in Massachusetts.
Yes, yes,
Were
they
they-
did. And this was, let's see, this is my mother's great-grandfather, came in 1609. I think they came from Scotland.
And your mother's family, where were they? Your mother's family, were they from England?
Scotland,
Scotland.
and England, yeah.
And the Dutch, where did they?
That was my paternal grandmother was Dutch. My maternal grandmother she was mostly English, I guess, a lot of Scotch. I'm waiting for this DNA and a visit from my grandson. He's gonna fill me in a little bit more on where people come from. He's got a lot of information. But England seems to be the place where most of my descendants came from. And my mother's maiden name was Martin, and they also were very religious people. They had farms. Some of them made wagons, stagecoaches, and that sort of thing. They were wagon makers. There's a lot of information on them.
What, did they consistently belong to one church organization? Or did different parts of your family belong to different religions?
No, mostly, they went to Episcopal and Presbyterian churches.
The Scotch.
Yeah, and I think.
Did they start at Half Acre? Did some of them start at Half Acre, or was that just your
my
parents
mother,
that were at the Half Acre church?
when my mother was a young girl growing up near Half Acre, she attended the Half Acre church with all the Pinckneys, Jeannie Pinckney's family. And there's still a lot of Pinckneys and Hoskins and people that my mother grew up with. There's the descendants are in that church, yeah. In fact, I have to go to church early because I don't want to park on the road using that. And there's no parking. There were 2 Sundays ago, standing room only. That little country bumpkin church, I don't know where these people are coming from, but they're filling the church.
Good.
And
That's very
I
good.
do know a lot of them. They're people that grew up in the area. And that's where my mother went to church. My dad went to, there was an Episcopal church in Cayuga a long time ago. It does not exist. It hasn't for a long time. And then he went to the Presbyterian church because that's where my mother wanted to go. And we were all baptized in the Presbyterian church in Cayuga.
Yeah, and I know there's a church there. I think they turned it into a house or something now.
Turned into what?
A house.
A house?
The
Yeah.
Catholic Church.
Where was
Yeah.
this? Was this in Cayuga?
Yes.
Maybe that was the Episcopal one, do you think?
That
It's a
was
white
where-
church.
It was the Presbyterian church, and the house that was built on that land, it was either just before or right behind the church. They built a house, and it was the Kamenekis. There was Jackie O'Hara and her husband. I think his name was Bill Kameneki.
Yes.
And they built that house on the same land that the Presbyterian church was. And that church was empty, and it got torn down once the Kamenekis built.
Yeah. But I know there's this other church
And there was a white church
Yes,
just down
that's
the
the
street.
one that's.
That was a Catholic church.
Yes, that's the one that they made into a house.
And then there was a Methodist church up on Center Street. It's still there.
Mm-hmm.
It's across from where the youth center used to be.
Mm-hmm.
The youth center is now being
It's gonna be
built
apartments.
into apartments.
Yes, I grew up with it being was a popular spot for kids' parties.
Yes,
There's
yes.
a gym upstairs.
It was a very well-used building.
Mm-hmm.
And now the Union Springs Elementary School that was built
Mm-hmm.
in Cayuga, my kids started there.
Yeah, and I went there.
Did you go there too?
Mhm.
Oh, did you?
Yes, I did.
Wow. And now they're making apartments there.
I think so.
Yeah.
My dad used to be mayor. Well, it was recently for, I don't know, 10 years maybe, has been mayor of Cayuga.
Oh, really?
I don't know if you know the name William Sherman, or if you've
I've
heard of that
I've
name.
heard it, but I didn't know any
Yeah.
Shermans. So he was the mayor there.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, you got stories. You can tell me. You
Yeah.
can give me history.
I didn't grow up in the village. He used to live in the village, and so he was mayor for a long time. But I grew up on Crossroad.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, we know where
So-
that, because there was some girls that went to Union Springs School, their last name was Ward. The one girl's name was Tula May. Tula
Yeah.
May Ward and Avis.
Davis.
But
The
Yeah.
house where your grandma is living in.
mm-hmm,
You know,
yes,
the Wards.
Wow.
I live. So my house is it's on a hill. There's a windy driveway. I don't know if you know, but that's where I live. But like I said, my dad used to live in Cayuga and then was mayor. So I would go in and see, on weekends would go see him, and I, would go to birthday parties at the city hall.
At the
Wow.
hall.
Yeah,
So-
interesting.
Yes.
There's a lady here. She lived over 50 years in Cayuga, and she lived on Wheat Street, right up the street from the school there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I know her quite well. We reminisce every now and then. Her kids all went to Union Springs to school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my dad. Well, he used to. The soccer field, the Macintosh
Oh. Yes, yeah.
soccer field, baseball.
Oh, right there in Cayuga?
Yes, he
Oh,
lives
yeah.
right across the street, or so right on Genesee.
Oh.
Okay.
So pretty much right as you come down that hill
I'm
into Cayuga.
used to be Twin Sister Hills,
Yes.
and they fixed it so they're not quite as steep as they were. But I can remember coming home. My grandmother lived in Auburn, and my mother would be driving the car. We'd go over those hills, and she'd let off on the accelerator so our stomachs would tickle. As we went down
Yeah.
the hills. Macintosh Park there,
Yes.
when I was a kid in the summertime, that was the busiest park. After church, the three churches got out about the same time, and we went there, and the ladies all brought food. The men and the boys would be playing softball. The ladies get the food out. The girls all running around playing tag and stuff like that. And we would eat, and then we would play a little bit, and the ladies would pick up, and there were quite a few farm families, and we'd have to go home to milk the cows. But I go into Cayuga. I used to go quite a bit because my brother was there, and nothing is happening. Nothing. I never see any activity around that park. It's all
Yeah.
mowed. It looks nice, but I never see anything.
They do have baseball games and
Yeah.
soccer games there.
Do they?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
do. They have community
And-
Events.
Yeah,
I guess
events.
it would do my heart good
Yeah.
to go by and see something like that because it was such an active
Yeah.
spot.
They probably, if it's baseball and soccer, I'd imagine. Well, baseball
Little
is
League and
now,
stuff. You know.
but yeah, it wasn't really used a lot when I was growing up,
Yeah.
which would be more recent. But yeah,
But they
Not
don't have what
much
you're saying. They don't have picnics.
no.
People don't come and have picnics. It's all about sports. It's
Yeah.
all sports.
Well,
Right.
people don't go to church like they used to either.
No.
Well, I was thinking of it as ecumenical. I mean, you said the three churches
About
get
the
out
time,
and all go together.
Yep.
Was that wonderful?
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Ecumenical before we even
Yeah,
knew what
before we
ecumenical
even
meant,
knew.
right?
Yeah, well,
Just
you know,
friends and families joining together. How nice.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I think when I was younger, there was quite a anti-feeling against other churches, the Protestants and the Catholics,
Right.
you know.
But yet you were getting together for this.
Well, yeah, we picnic,
Yeah.
but your family was, they were concerned if you were dating a Catholic boy, if you were gonna marry him, oh my goodness, that wasn't gonna go over well. Now, a lot of my family are Catholics. I have a nephew that's a priest, and my nephews, the two Wayne brothers, married two Duty sisters, and the Duties were Catholic, and you know they married. They brought a lot of kids between them, brought them all up Catholic, and nobody pays any attention.
Those are your brothers, the Wayne,
Yeah,
Mhm.
that married the duty girls, do you know the duty
Those are
girls?
my nephews,
your
Yeah,
nephews.
the nephews.
David and Doug. Yeah, married Debbie and Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're nice people.
Mm-hmm.
They do anything for you. And if I want to know where to get my car fixed, I just call David. I need a brake job, Dave. Where do I take my car?
Good to know.
Yeah, yeah. No, they're very nice people. But, you know, religion it's not a factor like it was when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
It was so silly, you know, people had very anti-feelings when they shouldn't have. So what else you want to know?
Are you gonna tell her about you taking
Oh.
your brother down to swim? Or aren't you gonna tell
Oh,
that one?
yeah, no, yeah, oh, I was telling Carol. I was not Daddy's little girl. I was not the princess in the family of 5 boys. And my mother had child number 6. It's June. And she's busy with a new baby, and it is hot. And we went to the lake a lot. You know, we lived, you know, just a couple fields away. So I thought, well, we'll go down to the lake. And so we didn't need my mother. She could take care of the baby. And I took my brother Buzz. We went down to the lake. We undressed and put our clothes in the bushes. We left our underwear on and went in the water. We cooled off, we played, we had a good time. Mrs. Amadon, who lived right next to our dock, she called my mother and she said, "Do you know Buzzy and MaryAnn are down here?" Well, she didn't. So she told my dad. Well, we got out, we ran around, chased each other and got ourselves dried off, put our clothes back on, and we started back up the lane to the house, and here comes Dad. There was smoke coming out of the back of his shoes. And I got a few whoops on my rear end, and Buzzy didn't.
Mm.
And there were times when there were some little thing that we did that wasn't a big deal. My mother made a cake for a church event, and she put this white fluffy frosting on it. And she had a lot of extra all around the cake. So we rubbed our fingers right around
Right.
nice and clean.
Clean it up a little.
And when she found out, she told Dad, and we got punished. Oh, I did. Buzzy didn't. See, he was a year younger than me. So he was the chosen one. It was my birthday time. I was turning 81, and he was going to turn 80. And I called him up, and I said, "Now," and he was very sick. I said, "Now, you need to take care of my birthday. You've got to make sure I get a birthday present this year." We're kind of going back and forth, and he says, Mary, I don't think I'm gonna make it to my 80th birthday. And I said, well, you'll have to prearrange. And I told him, we're talking, and he said to me, you know, I was the favored one.
Yeah. You have it, do you have that in writing or?
I have a picture of him here, and I'm holding his hand. There, I did take very good care of him.
Took care of Buzzy. But he knew, and he remembered that he didn't get punished, but you usually did.
Yes, he
right?
did. Yes, he remembered, that's why
He owned up, he fessed up.
That's why he told me that he was the favored one. Oh dear, stories.
Yeah.
But they, you know, they owned MaryAnn, I never quite understood. From Route 90 all the way down to the lake, they owned,
That property was all.
but how much? On both sides. I mean, this is farmland and stuff, is it
Oh,
not?
I don't know if I can tell you how many acres they had.
No.
And
Wow.
then from the house and the barn side of the road, they owned all the way back to, there's another road that goes to
They owned a
Cuba
lot of-
back there, and they owned back
Crossroad?
there.
Maybe way back, Crossroad?
What was
Way
it?
back to Crossroad?
Crossroads or
Mhm.
not, yeah?
Mhm.
Wow, he owned a lot of land.
That was the Van Sickle farm. And then and my grandmother, when she married my grandfather, they were married in that house. Then when my mother and my dad got married, they were married in the same house. My grandmother then lived in Cuga, in a house on Lake Street, looking right out over the lake. I always wanted that house when I was a little girl. I wanted that house when I grew up.
Mm.
And she owned that farm, even though it took on the name of the Wayne farm because her married name was Wayne. After she was widowed, she owned the farm, and my dad run it, but it was always going to be his, but she never deeded it over to him. And then he got very sick, and it was obvious that he was not going to get better. And my grandmother sold the farm to Beacon Milling Company. And the Wayne's Point, there's quite a bit of property down there. Beacon Milling Company sold that point off to, I believe the guy's name was Cummins, C-U-M-N-I-N-S. And she sold it for somewhere around $30,000.
Mm.
And that paid to Beacon, and the Beacon purchase of the farm and the point was around $30,000. So Beacon really stepped out of that debt-free. That was interesting.
When was that, MaryAnn? Do you remember when Beacon Milling bought that farm? You left then, right?
Yes, and we went to Oakwood.
Oh, okay.
That was probably, let's see, I was 11 when Dad died. We lived at Oakwood. Then my grandmother had sold the farm. It was 1945, about. And the Beacon Milling Company, they bought that farm and the point, and out on the Genesee Street Road going in and out of Cuba, there was a poultry research farm that the Beacon owned also. I think that eventually was purchased by Mennonite people, as was our farm. After Beacon used it for research, and then they sold it. And they sold it to a Mennonite family. And my brothers went there. One by one, they were curious about how they were using the house. And one of my brothers had a stroke, and he talked haltingly. And he knocked on the door, and he told the Mennonite lady he grew up in that house, and he was just curious whether it was still of one family or two family. she said, would you like to come in and have a walkthrough? And here he was talking. I don't know if I would have opened my door to somebody I'd never laid eyes on who couldn't speak quite properly.
Mm-hmm.
As he's talked like he had a stroke, which he did.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's telling the other brothers how he got to see that house. And then I can't think how Dell went to see it. Bob and Jim went together to see it. And that lady, that Mennonite lady, showed them the house. Now, I had seen the house because we had friends that lived there.
Mhm.
It was owned by Beacon. We had, the Hefferings worked for Beacon, and we were good friends with them, so I got to see the house after we lived there. They made it into a two-family house. So it was interesting.
But when did Freelys come in? Freelys were there before the Mennonites. The Mennonites that are there right now, the Mennonite family.
So
Freelys, and the kids went to Union Spring School.
did it go from Beacon to Mennonites?
It said Beacon, I think, on that sign. I thought it said Freely Farm, but I thought it also said Beacon. I could be wrong about that, but it said Freely Farm on it.
Could they have been there when Beacon owned it?
Maybe.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about
And
that.
they might have,
'Cause it was
they had a large dairy there because they were
Yeah.
doing research.
Okay, well,
Um,
maybe Freelys were doing it for them, yeah,
They
maybe.
might have been.
Yeah,
And that was after Hefferings left. There was a family in there, and Beacon still owned it. I thought when Beacon sold it, they sold it to a Mennonite family, but
Oh.
I'm not real sure.
No, because these people, the kids were in school. One of them was in with one of my daughters in school.
Oh,
Rich Freely. Freely. Freely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you real interested in the ice harvesting? Do you have information on that?
We have some, not a whole lot.
I
So-
have quite a bit of information, and I have some, I was showing Carol before you came. What did you do with the book?
What's it in there?
Did you put it in here?
I thought you did, 'cause I don't see it over
Here it
there.
is.
Yeah, I remember there being a book in there. So.
Now, do you have information on this bridge that went across Cuba Lake?
Yes.
You got that?
Yes.
Hmm.
Okay, I won't bore you with more of it. I have an article here that was written by Carol Sisler. Her husband was a professor at Cornell, and he was blind also. And Carol was into history, and she wrote this article for the Ithaca Journal. I don't know whether you want to look at that. Maybe you've already got that information.
It showed a picture of the horses with the,
Okay.
with the ice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was a big industry, and I got so interested in it, I wrote up some stuff here about who owned the ice house down there. It was owned by a Wilkie. It was a Wilkie ice business, and he lived in Cuga in the village. And it was a big house, a big building. And I don't know how many years that he produced this ice, but my dad used to, of course we didn't have electricity or anything, we had stoves in our house, and Dad would cut wood all summer long and in the fall so we could have wood burning in our stoves. The sawdust from the wood was saved, and it'd be mounds of sawdust. And they used those, they put them on the floor,
Hmm.
and then they put the ice on the sawdust, sprinkled a little more on it, and layered another, a whole layer of ice. And that was shipped all over the state. But anyway, Dad had horses, and he would loan or go himself down, and they would clean the ice off with plows and stuff. They would shovel it all off, get it all nice and clean before they cut the ice. It had to be clean. And then it was layered in the ice house. And there was another big long building. And I vaguely remember 2 buildings down there. And I think that they used it for people who worked to help them harvest the ice. They hired anybody and everybody. A lot of veterans coming home from the war, World War I, didn't have jobs. They would come in the winter, and they'd help harvest the ice. We had our own ice house on our property on the side of the road where our house was, because we had an ice box, no electricity. We had our own ice, but it was a big deal. Anyway, this Wilkie lived down in the village of Cuga. The land down there all belonged to my grandmother, and anything that was down there was on a 99-year lease. And I don't know how they pay their 99-year debt. I have no idea. Did they ever exchange money? I don't know. I was very young, and I don't know what they did about that. But when that property was sold off to the people that had cottages down there, have you been down there? You ever been down there?
Yes.
There's some nice homes down there. And for the life of me, I can't imagine why my grandmother didn't keep a chunk of it with 6 grandchildren. Why wouldn't she keep a chunk of it so that we could have, we could have a big commune building? And I just don't know why. Because my brothers had boats and stuff, and they would spend quite a bit of time on the lake. And it just seemed too bad that she sold all that property. Didn't look back.
Wasn't there a Justin Wayne married a Rancier girl?
Yes, Justin.
Didn't they live down in that area? Why did I think they lived down there? And maybe not.
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay.
They lived, when you are on Route 90.
There's other places, Plaster Point and things like that.
Yes.
Cozy Cove. There's a few other places
Yes.
that maybe they're one
Yes,
of
they
those
were-
places then.
But
I know some teachers, some of our teachers lived down there.
did they have a
Ken
home?
Jones and Dennis Carls. They both had homes down there, and Dick and Jean Palmer were down there. They had a home down there.
And they lived year round?
No, well, Jean did. Yeah, yes, they did. They all did, didn't they? Yes, they did.
They have a homeowners
Homeowners
association
Association.
now, and every once in a while I get feeling kind of lonely, and I'll miss the brothers and stuff, and I'll just take a little ride and go down there. It's very pretty.
Mm-hmm.
It's very pretty, and when you get under the bridge and you turn to the right, that's all mowed, and it's like a park there, and then you got the homes along it, some very nice homes.
Yep.
So I would think, the homeowners association must own that lane. It is still a lane. It's not a blacktop road. I wouldn't think a plow would be down in there. They must have their own plows.
I think they do. I think Dick Palmer said they did. But going under that little tunnel is not too much fun. It
Not
feels
fun.
like, if it's muddy there, I'm going to hit those walls. Was that the same tunnel? It was been there forever.
It's been there forever.
Mm-hmm.
And when we come home from Sunday school, my mother would say, "Now, you kids be sure you walk home on the road and you stay on the proper side of the road. Do not walk the tracks. I'm telling you, do not walk the tracks." We walk the tracks.
Of course.
He didn't say don't do this one, because that meant do.
And my brother Dallas taught us how to tell when there was a train coming. If you laid down on the track and you put your ear,
Hear the train come, you can hear
you could
rumble.
feel the vibration.
Mhm.
You wouldn't hear the train,
Mhm.
but you knew you needed
The
to
rumble.
get down off the bank.
We did that.
We would usually get to the bridge, and if you ever go down in there, there's steps that come down from the railroad tracks
tracks.
down into the road,
Just for the Waynes?
just for us to walk the tracks and come home. And you know, it wouldn't have been a bad life to be a hobo. They used to, they had, they would hop the trains, and they had places where they'd get off, and they would come to our house, and they'd want a meal, and my mother would always have them chopping wood or digging a new hole for the toilet or something. They worked, and then she'd feed them this great big meal. I guess they left signs so that the next hobos that came along would know where to get off.
Go to the Wayne farm.
Get a free meal for a little effort.
I'm trying to figure out when you said they did the ice harvesting and there was a house where Mr. Wilkie worked. Was that right in Cayuga, or was this on
It was
the
down
river
on the
road?
point.
On the
Down-
oh, it
down
was
at
on the
Wayne's
point. Okay.
Mhm.
Where he lived.
Mhm.
Oh,
And
okay.
I think that, I also think there was an ice house in the village of Cayuga.
Okay.
I think it's in this article that Carol Sisler wrote. I think there was one there. It was quite a big business. There was one in Union Springs. There was one in Aurora. Ice harvesting all up and down the lake was big business.
I think Claire talked a little bit about
Yeah, at her. Okay, so can you tell the story with the birthday party and the fire trucks?
Okay, we got off the school bus to celebrate my 8th birthday. This is the only party I ever had. And we're going to celebrate it big. And the fire trucks are coming, beating us up the driveway, and they're headed right back to the barn. And Carol is so excited over the fire trucks. She's just jumping and running, and she's chasing the fire trucks all the way to the barn, because my brothers had put a match in the hay chute. They are 3 and 4. And they put a match in the hay chute, and the flames really skyrocketed, so they put more hay on top
To try to get.
to try to put the fire out. And Carol is just running around like she's one of the firemen, only she didn't have a hose in her hand. And she's so excited. No.
That's her story. I don't quite remember all this, but I do have a nice picture to remind me of that day. I just have to believe what MaryAnn says. I'm not certain if that's exactly the way it happened. But okay, well, I'll accept it. I'll accept that story.
It's
Oh,
true.
dear.
I remember vividly. You want to hear more stories about Carol coming to my house?
Yes,
She was going to marry one of the Wayne boys. The preference at the time was Marty. Marty was a couple, 3 years older than Carol. And she said, when he got a girlfriend, oh well, I'll marry Buzzy.
Probably you had a lot of girlfriends that came to the house.
Actually, I think Carol was the one, and my brothers liked her too.
Mm-hmm.
They liked her. They said she was like another sister. They had nice things to say about her. So,
Interesting.
not too many years ago, there was a Wayne get-together at the yacht club up on Owasco Lake. and Carol's visiting me in Dryden, and I said, I don't want you to hurry off or anything, but I have an invitation to go to the yacht club and have supper with my brothers. Do you want to go? Yes, I do. And she came and she hugged all my brothers. You remember that?
I don't think that happened like that, MaryAnn, but
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
she's telling the story, so I guess I just have to sit here.
Did you
and-
all get dressed especially?
No,
for
it
this
was
party?
it was casual because
a
it was
casual?
in the
This
summer
is a picnic.
Uh-huh.
Just a
picnic down there.
and
But
but you have to admit that what I'm telling could be true, even though you don't remember
a smidgen of it is, you know.
The good part?
Yeah, the good part. But you know, I don't know how many people can say that they have friends that you've known since you were 5 years old,
Started school together.
and you know, we went our different ways, and some because MaryAnn moved different places, so we didn't always see each other. But then as we got older and she got back more or less in the area, you know, we saw each other. And MaryAnn was great for even when we were in our 70s and so on. She liked sleepovers.
Yeah, we did have fun.
She called them the sleepovers. So we would go and stay overnight for a couple of nights. This Mary Lou Scott, she was Mary Lou Storier. She would come too, and so
Yeah.
Pajama
Stories.
parties.
pajama parties. in
And
the
my
70s.
mother said she didn't care if the boys came. If they wanted to come, they could come. So we were out in Arizona, and Carol and Mary Lou were out there, and somebody said to Carl, "What do you do with all those women around?" "Oh, it's not so bad." He said, "Kind of enjoy it."
Yeah, because we went to visit. I went 2 times without Mary Lou, because when Mary Lou was taking care of her husband, and then 2 times after her husband passed away, that Mary Lou and I went out to visit. So they were very good hosts and hostesses, that MaryAnn and Carl. And then we had like a little mini class reunion because we had a couple and a man that lived in Green Valley, and then in Tucson we had one gal with a classmate, and then MaryAnn and Carl were in Mesa, and so when we all got together, there was about 8 of us.
Yes, there was. There was.
And it was a little mini class reunion,
Yeah.
you know, out there in Arizona.
Yeah.
That was neat. It was
There was
nice.
Joan and Duffy,
Yeah.
and you and Mary Lou, and myself, Joyce, and Liz came. Oh, we had a friend that was a nun, and she came over too. And then there were some other Union Springs
Well,
schoolmates.
Charlie's
Older brother.
older brother lived in Green Valley, where this Joan and Len Deffendorf and Ed Smith lived. That was in Green Valley, and isn't that where they lived?
Mhm.
Roy Skank.
Mm-hmm. Roy and Lois.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we went out for dinner. They went with us. So yeah, there were quite a few
Mm-hmm.
Union
Nice.
Springs
Very
people
nice.
out there.
Yeah.
Do you
Weird.
remember what year that was?
Oh boy, I can't remember. Well, John, let's see, you came, and then Mary Lou didn't. And then Mary Lou did come as a widow. When did John
See,
die?
I don't even remember those dates, MaryAnn. I don't.
Oh, I can't remember.
It's
the
hard
date.
to remember when
Yeah.
I think-
time
I had
passes
retired. I know that, and I retired in '95.
quickly. Okay,
So I had retired. It's
so it has to be after 95.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm after '95.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, nice. How about the story about the road, talking about the
Oh,
road?
the new cement road
Yes.
Yes.
that went through Cayuga, and it went all the way to Union Springs, and I believe it went through Union Springs, and it was a cement road, and they used 2x4s to block off the rectangles that they wanted to pour and prepare for the road.
But that before then, it was a gravel road,
It was a gravel road.
and this was in
Do
19.
you remember when that was?
I was probably somewhere 5, 6 years old, so it must have been around 1940, approximately. We had a truck would go by every year, and they'd pour gravel, and then a roller would come behind the truck. The workmen would kind of spread the gravel out, and then the roller would come, and they'd roll and press that gravel down into the earth. And then pretty soon, a few days later, a truck would come with oil, because you would still get dust and stuff,
Uh-huh.
and they would oil the road. And that was the road until about 1940. And then they left all those wooden pieces along the side of the road, and those were valuable pieces of wood, and they were just going to waste.
Your
So-
brother said.
My brothers took all that wood, little by little, into our pasture behind our barn and built a hut. Didn't have any windows or anything, but it did have a door. And we spent a lot of time in that hut. When the bull would come and want to chase us out of his pasture, and he would butt that house, and it would still stand. Sometimes I wonder if it's still there. All these years.
But you were afraid it was going to collapse.
We were scared. Yes, we were scared. That bull was mean. And my dad probably didn't realize we were down there when he let the bull out.
But he didn't know when he was questioned. Your dad was questioned about those
He was
2x4s, and
He was questioned about that. They wanted to know if he'd seen anybody picking up those wooden sticks, and he said he had not witnessed any such thing. But he probably had to have a talk with his son and tell him, or probably, I don't know, I wasn't in on that, but he would have had to tell him there was a right and a wrong. And it was wrong to steal the wood from alongside the road.
Not if you thought they were throwing it out, though.
Good reason. Whether you believe it or not, it was like my Playtex with a slingshot. I really believed.
Would you want to tell that one?
Probably not. That's a little intimate.
Well, those two are really, really good.
Yes, they are very good.
Oh, I envied Carol so much because she walked to town and walked home after school. I just envied her. You can't imagine how much, because I hated the bus ride.
How
see,
long
I
was
wanted
it?
a bus ride, and I didn't like it because I had to walk.
Right.
So, you know,
And
But was yours a long bus ride?
no. Usually the bus would go to Cayuga, and it would go by our house, so we could be one of the first ones off. Or it would go around and he would take turns.
Mhm.
And if it was going around, it was a long trip. So I wanted to go home with Carol. Her father would say, "Now I want you girls to come straight home. Now you remember this." He's telling you to come straight home and not
hang around in the streets of Union Springs. You could not hang around.
Did not want her to be loitering the streets. So we thought one time we would hurry and go to Richardson's, and we could get
Drugstore. It was a drugstore then.
Yeah, we get a root beer float, and if we hurried up, we could slurp it down, flirt with the boys, and get home, and her father would never know the difference. Do you remember that?
I remember him coming in and
Oh, yeah.
told me that I wasn't supposed to be hanging around there.
I remember laughing and having my head down, looking at the floor, laughing about something, and I saw these dress shoes. And I just looked right up. And it's Carol's
My
dad.
father. You're not supposed to be here.
That's what he said.
You better go home. That was loitering to him. You couldn't sit in a booth like that and talk and gab and stuff. That was loitering to him. That was hanging around.
He didn't want you to get into trouble.
Yeah, well.
But that's what you all wanted to do. I don't know what age you were at that time.
Probably middle school age, probably.
Eighth grade,
school.
7th, 8th
maybe.
grade, maybe.
Yeah, because the boys would be Dick Coke and Pudge and Bill and
Dick Smith.
Nick Smith, and there'd be a bunch of guys, and we would be flirting with them. They'd be in one booth and we'd be in the other. Now, how can you get into trouble?
Maybe what you would cook up to do.
What we would do next. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
Yes, very fun.
Yeah, I don't know. There's so many stories we could just go on and on. And the night before I was married, we had a rehearsal at church, and then we had a little dinner party that my aunt put on, and then she said it was time for us to go because the groom should not see the bride after midnight. So I stayed all night with Carol, and it rained, and it rained. And my wedding day is the next day, and it's raining. And we're talking and talking, and all of a sudden the cellar door opens up, and I heard this, "Girls, you better get to sleep. MaryAnn, you're going to have a busy time ahead of you. You need your rest." It was your father.
Remembers all these things.
Don't you remember?
No.
You don't remember me staying at your house?
I don't remember that either.
You
No.
were already married?
yes.
You had your own house? Or you
No,
were at your parents'?
but I was not married yet. I was living with my parents, so we were at my parents' house.
So your dad, yeah.
No, I stayed at your house. I'm surprised you can't remember that.
Must be it wasn't.
Well, it was a special night to her.
It was.
Yeah, it was. It was. And it rained the next day, too. We were supposed to have this garden party in the Rose Arbor. Everything was inside. Stuck inside.
Well, that's like mine, because mine was during a hurricane.
Yes, that's right.
And it was.
Got married in a
And
fever.
No power in the church.
there was no power in the church, so even though it was a 2:00 wedding, it wasn't fashionable, I guess, to have candlelight till about 4. But we had to have candlelight, and then the organist had to play the piano because there was no electricity. And my parents, we had the reception was supposed to have been outdoors. So you had 100 people milling around in my parents' small house. And the thing of it was, Mother said before the wedding, I don't really, we don't need anything new. I don't need anything new in the house, except it would be nice to have a new rug. So they got a new green rug.
Oh, no.
And the next day, my father scared the devil out of my mother. They were just waking up, and he said a few words. The air was blue, and Mother says, "What's the matter? What's the matter? What's the matter?" Look at that weather. Clear, quiet, sun. The very next day.
Well, see what happened after you were married?
Yeah.
The sun came up.
I remember that. I remember no power and no lights in the church.
I didn't want to
and,
upstage your story about the rain, MaryAnn, but I think mine was worse.
Well, yes, because you had a hurricane. I just had
Memorable
rain.
wedding.
I had to put one up on her because she got married before I did. I wanted to make mine more exciting than hers was.
It was all planned,
It
right?
was planned.
Mary Lou got married during our senior year.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody said they were so young it wasn't going to last.
And it,
Yeah, they were married 50-some years. Yeah, it lasted.
Poor John passed away. You know.
I know. And John had lung cancer. I was sad. And Mary Lou had the first boy-girl party that I ever went to.
I don't remember that. I don't remember that.
Our first boy-girl
Yeah.
party I do is our parents, Duffy's mother. My mother took us, Duffy and I, to that party. And Duffy's mother brought us home from that party. And Duffy gave me a kiss on my cheek.
Oh my.
And he was really just a friend. He wasn't a boyfriend. He was just
well,
like...
maybe he figured he should do that. That was part of it. Was that like 7th grade or was
Yes. Yes, we were 7th graders. You don't remember that?
No. Must be I didn't get a kiss on my cheek, and I would have remembered the party if I had, I guess.
Oh my gosh, we were so young. What did we do? What did we do?
Probably
for
play spin the bottle. That's usually what you did at parties, wasn't it?
Yeah, I hated that game. I hated that game. Wow.
And then played, probably danced and played music. And,
Yeah, probably.
Probably there was music and
No.
dancing. I don't know, maybe the boys sat around and the girls walked around and did whatever they wanted to do, but I don't remember too much boy-girl mixing.
No.
It was the first boy-girl party I ever went to. Maybe you elite townspeople, so much more
The
sophisticated.
townies.
oh,
The townie.
now I see. Oh, a little bit.
No,
of,
I don't think we did. I don't remember having.
Oh, I should show you the picture on the refrigerator, the 8-year-old birthday party, and then when we're all grown up, I have before and after on my refrigerator.
Did we look much different?
We looked a little different. Yeah.
One highlight though of our senior year, maybe I said this before when I was talking with Liz, we decided our 45th class reunion we were maybe gonna let's do a short cruise. Well, we figured they had 5 years to save money. It was our 40. We were going to do it on our 50th, and but as it turned out, the night before we had our usual banquet with about maybe 40 people, and only 14 went on the cruise. But we had a good time.
We did.
We had we had more fun, just the 14 of us. We went to Nassau. We made it
Short.
a little bit as cheap as we could for people, but some people didn't go because they didn't want to be on the ocean. Some people didn't want to fly because we had to fly to Florida to pick it up. So that was some of the reasons. But that was.
And one of the girls was married to a minister, and one of the workers, I don't know what his-
Waiter? Was he a waiter?
waiter,
Yeah.
and we always sat at the same table. And he was quite colorful, and he got talking with the man of the cloth, and he would wear the cloth collar to dinner, even though he wasn't preaching or anything. He'd wear it to dinner, and the young man started calling him Dad. Because he was father so-and-so.
Right.
And the guy called him Dad. You remember that?
And they
They were so funny.
They were funny, just like Abbott and
An
Costello.
act.
They just got that going, the two of them.
They just went back and forth with his humor. And then when it was time to leave the ship, the waiter, he came to say goodbye to Dad. And I think they got a little bit emotional with each other because they had really bonded on this cruise. But he came to say goodbye. That was
Nice.
funny.
Yeah, it got a lot of good years.
Yeah,
a lot of fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, that's a good thing about, memories people cannot take away from you, I mean, you can have which would be awful, is you had a fire and you lost your pictures, that's awful too, because they can't be replaced. But, memories, people can't take that away from you,
No.
You have them, unless
Yeah, unless you don't have
Yeah,
them.
oh my
unless you don't
goodness.
have the ability to remember,
Oh,
but, which
I
is,
hope that never happens.
uh,
We have a good time here at dinner. This doesn't have anything to do with.
Yes, it does.
After COVID happened, we couldn't eat in the dining room. And then finally we got back to eating in the dining room. Only 4 people at a table, maybe 3, but not any more than that. So we got 4 people, and we were quite good friends. We bonded, and then I ended up in rehab for almost 2 months. And this other gentleman sat at the table in my seat. And then I came back, and they put me back at that table, and they started putting him at different tables. He was devastated. He wanted to stay at that table. So I went to the head honcho here, and he said, I want to be at that table. And she said, okay, we'll move Dick and MaryAnn. So they moved us to another table and set him there. And then the others at the table said, oh,
We want Dick and MaryAnn.
we want Dick and MaryAnn too. So, long story short, we hounded her so much, she put 2 tables together, and there's 6 of us at the table. And it's turned out beautifully. Dick has an awesome voice, and he is a music master here. So sometimes we'll get singing. And one night we took wine to the table. It was somebody's birthday. And Dick has got his wine glass, and he's pretending he's in Germany. And he's singing his German song. And pretty soon across the dining room, there's another guy that's German descent. And he starts singing. And people are looking, and we're singing away. And we had this conversation that night. So we've gotten to be really good friends. And a couple nights ago, one of them says to me, MaryAnn, he says, did you ever talk to your kids about sex? And I said, well, yeah. You have to tell them about the birds and the bees. Well, Dick got singing a song that the 4 men singing to the quartet. What do you call them? Your dad's singing that.
barbershop.
Barbershop. So Dick got singing the barbershop song, and it was about telling somebody about sex. We just got laughing so.
That's how we teach it, with a song.
A song.
Well, we didn't really get into the topic too heavily, but somehow we're talking about kids in school and how things had changed, and all the things that nowadays kids are
Taught in school.
they're being asked, being told they can make a choice whether they're a boy or a girl. And the subject came up. I never heard of such a thing when we were in school. We never heard of anything like that. And
No.
so that's what started the conversation about, had I talked with my kids about sex. And I said, well, yeah, you teach them about the birds and the bees so they don't hear it in the locker room. And so then one thing led to the other, and Dick is singing the song. And
Listen to those seniors.
It was really, really nice to hear you share all
Yes.
these stories.
Really enjoyed hearing all your stories, especially the ones together. And
Yeah, well,
we have a history.
yes. So thank you very much for doing the little
That's been
interview
fun.
today.
I've been looking forward to. Everybody here knew that we were going to meet and talk about the olden days. Everybody here knew that we were gonna meet and talk about the olden days, so we have a wellness call every morning, and I told her, I said, today's the day my friends come and we talk about the past, and she said, oh, she said, is that gonna start pretty soon? It was like 9 o'clock this morning.
No, not yet.
Yeah.